Managing a college football roster is a never-ending task. Now, for the most part, though, things are set for 2021. There will be some movement in the transfer portal. There'll be some transfers coming and going from most programs, but if you're relying on those people right now, you're already in trouble unless something falls from the sky. So that's why we're going to look at the depth chart, which is not set yet, but we'll look at 5 players that need to have a big 2021 in order to solidify things and help Penn State have a big season. We'll start at number 5 and work all the way up to number 1. And if you can guess who number 1 is, you're like everybody else can guess who number 1 is on the list. We already know who that is. All right, so coming in at number 5, KeAndre Lambert-Smith, the receiver freshman from last year who you love to have guys like this on your roster. He's big, and this is one of those scouty things, but he just runs well. Like, he runs so well. Big, long receiver, long arms, good catch radius, good hands for the most part. Did struggle with drops in 2020, and in general with the position of just, the small things that make receivers good. But all the potential is still there. Penn State fans should still be high on KeAndre Lambert-Smith, but it's what you're much less certain about that than you are about some of the other freshman receivers that have come through recently, including his teammate Parker Washington, who had a strong 2020 and was large part of the offense. Lambert-Smith, when it comes to his impact on the team, if he doesn't take that next step and he doesn't provide that upside that you see in him, there are other options why he's number 5 on the list. Cam Sullivan-Brown was still a large part of the offense this spring. It wasn't clear that KeAndre Lambert-Smith had taken that next step as far as what we saw when we were at the practice where both were involved in the offense. Outside of that, 3 receivers are coming in for Penn State in the class of 2021. Liam Clifford, who is a high-floor sort of player, could contribute early with some good fundamentals that he knows as far as his profile so far. Deep threat Harrison Wallace with a lot of speed, and Lonnie White Jr., who's a very good athlete. It may be a long shot for those guys to contribute in 2021, but it was also a long shot in 2020 for KeAndre Lambert-Smith, and here we are. At the very least, with the redshirt rule of everyone being able to see 4 games, you'll get to see those guys. But if Lambert-Smith doesn't take the next step, there are other options, and the best options, honestly, are at tight end. Not only do you have Jahan Dotson and Parker Washington, who are a great 1 and 2 in your offense, you also have the most talented tight end room in the nation, most likely, with Bretton Strange, Theo Johnson, Tyler Warren. Those guys have a tremendous upside. This offseason, there were some reports that they all ran under 4.6. Most of them are over 250 pounds. Wow. So there's talent on the roster for receivers, but KeAndre Lambert-Smith would solidify those 3 receiver sets and make everyone feel better that a guy who's currently on the roster and currently has all that potential has taken the next step. The next guy we're going to talk about is Charlie Katshir. You might not be as think he would be on this list, but Charlie Katshir might be the primary backup linebacker next year. Currently, Jesse Luketa is 255 pounds listed on the roster, and James Franklin has already talked about this spring moving him to a different position, which at 255 pounds is not slot corner. Like, he's most likely moving to defensive end if he decides to move there. So that leaves 2 players as the primary backups at the linebacker position, and Charlie Katshir is the most veteran of that group, and he's shown over time he's a good coverage defender. He's good at finding his zones, and he's also an asset in run defense, although he is a little undersized. He's trained at every linebacker position, so it's going to be interesting to see if he can find a role on the defense if Luketa moves, and if he doesn't, he's still going to be a player in 2021. It's just what size his role is. And him stepping up will allow the Nittany Lions to move Jesse Luketa, either him or the freshman Tyler Elsdon. And as the veteran, you would lean on that guy first. Speaking of veterans that have injury issues and have on-again, off-again field production, Nick Tarburton is the starting defensive end right now for the Nittany Lions. We haven't seen much of him. So asked him this spring, what's your game like?
As far as kind of what I've been able to do so far, I feel like I'm a pretty physical presence. Off the ball, I feel like I can strike well, play the run game well, and with that, be able to convert to the passing game as well. I think I'll be able to bring a lot of power, some speed, and I'm I want to be a tough player, bottom line.
So the thing with the situation at defensive end with the Nittany Lions is they like to rotate anyway. So when you have that number of players that are playing, one guy isn't going to make or break the impact, but it is very important that somebody step up. And again, as the guy who was the lead one on the depth chart is what we could tell this spring, and the guy that we got to talk to, Nick Tarburton, if he has a strong fall, will help the Nittany Lions solidify, as he talked about, run defense, strong side defensive end, and setting a baseline for the defensive end position that is very light outside of him, especially on the other side of the ball across from him with Adisa Isaac and Arnold Ebiketie, both being under 250 pounds. Now behind him, Smith Vilbert, 6'6", 200 and almost 60-pound defensive end, lots of upside. A guy that, again, like KeAndre Lambert-Smith, if he works out, might be the preferable option, but at this point, is the younger, less experienced player, even if Tarburton, most of his experience has been either at a different position or learning the one he's currently playing. Somebody has to step up, so we're picking Tarburton as the guy with the inside track to do that. So the next player, and possibly the most critical player on this list, is safety Ji'Ayir Brown. Brown is the likely heir apparent to the field safety position, vacated by Lamont Wade, graduating in 2020. And last season, he was a rotational player who saw a lot of snaps on the defense, and it was hit or miss with Ji'Ayir Brown. Struggled in that safety slot role that the Penn State defense employs at that position, where he has to cover slot receivers down the field at times. He has to come up and fill in the run game. It's a versatile position, and one that, especially in big moments, he struggled with run defense or with covering receivers down the field. Now, it wasn't all bad, and I think he does provide a higher ceiling as a coverage player than Lamont Wade did, but he has to improve in that area, or else he's just a struggling run defender and a guy that provides you the what if at the safety position. Now, why it's critical that Ji'Ayir Brown take a big step in 2021 is there is not another guy on the roster that you should feel super confident about. Now, Jaquan Brisker talked about cross-training at both safety positions, which provides a little bit of relief there. But outside of that, Jonathan Sutherland is more of in the Brisker role as the boundary safety, not a guy that you want in slot coverage a whole lot. He's more of a box player. And then you have Tyler Rudolph, Enzo Jennings, young freshman players that, again, have high upside, good size, look like they have good range, but have absolutely zero experience. Outside of that, it's Keaton Ellis, who just moved to the field safety position this spring. So Ji'Ayir Brown securing and locking down the starting position, playing as a good safety, is critical for the Penn State defense and for the Penn State team. Now, speaking of the Penn State team, there's no other player that's more important to the team playing well in 2021 than starting quarterback Sean Clifford. Sean Clifford has struggled at times with multiple areas of playing quarterback, and there are always mitigating circumstances when you're the quarterback. Different offensive coordinators, hasn't been in the same system for more than 2 years at a time, and has not had the same position coach because of that for more than 2 years at a time. Him taking a step forward and playing up to his potential, which is good. Sean Clifford has good potential. When things work for Sean Clifford, he's a good quarterback. He can execute the offense well. So that's going to be the goal for him in 2021. This offseason, master Mike Yurcich's offense so that you're comfortable on the football field, because when he's not comfortable, things break down. After that, once you're comfortable, make good decisions with the football. As Mike Yurcich has said before, know where your eyes are supposed to be on every play. That's how you learn the offense. That's how you know what to do. And then a lot of these problems that you're seeing here will fix themselves. Distribute the ball properly and don't lose composure. And if you can do all of those things, if Sean Clifford can do all of those things, the last thing is learning to play better after the snap. When the defense adjusts to something you weren't expecting, know what the answer is. Have a counterpunch to what they do. So if Sean Clifford can do all of that, it fixes almost all of this stuff. The margin for error when you have a good quarterback goes up exponentially for your team. So those are 5 players that Penn State needs to have a big fall in 2021.